baby, listen to me speak, yeah. No matter what, just let it go.
Pop, persuadable. How we doing, boo-boos? As always, before we get into the match, I'm actually going to start this video off seriously without a dad joke this week. I want the world to know that we lost a very remarkable, beautiful woman. She was a patient of mine. And although I am being quite familiar with death and COVID-19, there's always patients that you connect with very, very well. I was super close to her, and it's been very difficult coping her loss. I went into her room, I held her hand, I did nothing but cry. I couldn't even be I couldn't even be firm or anything. You know, and she opened her eyes and she could see that I was crying for her, and I think I think that comforted her a little bit, knowing that she had such a strong connection with somebody. I learned a lot from her, and I want all the families to know that if you've lost somebody, especially in a skilled nursing facility, a lot of us care about our patients. We're emotionally and physically invested in their well-being, and I just hope that you know that I care about all of you, and I hope your loved ones care about you as well. So let's move on. Let's talk about Ripper. And now, a lot of people know that Ripper needs an adjustment, and I agree, Ripper needs an adjustment. The devs agree, Ripper needs an adjustment. And the question is how are they going to adjust him, right? Because we don't really know too much as of now. We just know that the devs have indicated that eventually he is going to be adjusted. I think Ripper is the perfect character to see the difference between where survivors were once at and where they have come since. It was around Season 7, Season 8 that Ripper was still utilized on a competitive level. That's when Bloody Queen got released, so on and so forth. And Ripper really, for the most part, hasn't changed too much. But he's not really used at all, and it kind of gives you an idea of all the buffs that survivors have gotten since then. And that's the reason why the devs need to spend so much time fixing these hunters, because think of it this way, right? Ripper used to be an S-tier hunter. They haven't messed with him too much, and we see that he's probably a B-tier hunter now. He's not even an A-tier hunter anymore. And they didn't really mess with him too much. They only buffed a crazy, probably 30, 40 different things with survivors since Season 8. And so if he was an S-tier hunter and he's phased out that much over the course of 4 or 5 seasons, you got to ask yourself, well, what about the hunters who weren't S-tier then and still aren't S-tier now? If an S-tier hunter in Season 8 is now a B-tier hunter, what the hell happened to all the hunters that were worse than Ripper and haven't really seen any crazy adjustments? And we know that the devs have been slowly working on that. Not only have they released a bunch of hunters, but we've seen Axe Boy adjustments, we've seen Gamekeeper adjustments coming, we've seen Hellember adjustments, give or take. So the question is what are they going to do about Ripper? And now, you can't really make a full video on just talking about the Ripper adjustment. We don't know when it's happening. We kind of do, but we don't know what it's going to be. And I got a really cool message from one of the viewers. And one of the viewers, I'll see if I can put the screenshot up there in the video here. I got to stop being so damn lazy. But he essentially said, what happens if Ripper can build foggy blades? And I thought it was a very, very intriguing idea. Remember, when you offer a suggestion for an adjustment overhaul or a buff, it's a very complicated thing to do, right? It's like politics. We can all bitch about politics, but then no one actually wants to provide a solution because, well, solutions are specific and they're easy to dismantle. So this idea that you build foggy blades, I thought was very, very intriguing. That it takes, 20 seconds or whatever to build foggy blades, and you can have a few of them up. And then when you do throw a foggy blade, you'll have a countdown in between when you can use the foggy blade so you can't spam them. I thought that was an interesting adjustment. Because Ripper, really, the big thing is that it's not that his character is flawed in the sense of like the mechanics of the character. It's just that he needs more foggy blades. The reason why he's been nerfed. So the reason why he's phased out is because if you miss your first foggy blade, you're kind of fucked. That was the problem with Anne. And they have overhauled Anne so you can get cats faster. So it's pretty much the same thing with Ripper. Really what you should be able to do is you should stock up foggy blades. You should have that ability. And even if there's a cooldown in between using them, you don't gotta wait 15 seconds or so. And I thought that that was a really, really good idea. And I want to open this discussion up with everybody else. What do you think would be a good adjustment for Ripper? I think the foggy blade is fine. I think it's a cool mechanic. And I think it requires an incredible amount of skill, which is something that a lot of hunters require. You know, and I think that survivors have a reasonable way to avoid them. And we have gotten better on the server at avoiding them. That's why survivors got better at countering them, and survivors have more tools in their toolbox now, and survivors have gotten better. So how do we get Ripper up to the same level? When you look at the high tier Chinese gameplay, Lizard is doing way better than Ripper. Lizard arguably is better than Ripper. This shouldn't even really be an argument anymore. For Lizard, there's over 7-8 people with over 10,000 points. Ripper only has like 1. Now, of course, that's subjective because a lot of good Ripper players also don't play Ripper anymore, and there's more hunters coming out. So, you know, Ripper's an old character, so that used to be meta for so long that people don't really find as much joy playing them, and they've switched over to Bonbon and Sculptor. And of course, we also know that survivors are pains in the asses these days, so you have to use Bonbon, Sculptor, Violinist, Axeboy, those sorts of hunters to win for the most part. So, well, which is not always true, because now hunters also play, you know, their favorite hunters, even if they're non-meta. We got to remember that these are all things that we've been talking about for a long time. I think that would be a perfect adjustment for Ripper. Allow him to store foggy blades to really be able to down somebody super fast. He doesn't really have crazy anti-rescue, especially against the non-meta against the meta survivors. I mean, you got Gravekeeper, you got Mercenary, you know, a lot of them who can still go in and waste a foggy blade and still be up. So how do you counter that? Well, you give them more foggy blades. How long does it take to build the foggy blades? How long is the cooldown? I think that would be a cool adjustment, but I might be missing something here. So if you could adjust Ripper, and I don't want to hear any of this shit that he's fine. He's not fine. This shouldn't even be an argument. He's objectively not fine. He's fizzled out. He's hardly used. Survivors are significantly harder now. They have way more tools in their toolbox. He definitely needs an adjustment. And I don't like this like lazy cop-out sort of like, oh, no, he's fine. Good players are still good with them. Good players can be good with him, but it's significantly harder still winning, even as a good Ripper, than what it is as a Bonbon and Sculptor. But at the same time, perhaps the way that I just presented that is arrogant and ignorant as fuck, right? Because you should have every right to disagree. So you see how like I argue with myself? You should see me in the shower. Well, not, that would came out, I meant like not see me, you should, all right, whatever. There's no bouncing back from that. This Ripper footage is actually from like June of 2020. And so I've been going into my footage from Google Drive from people who submitted gameplay. And you can tell that this Ripper here is really experimenting with that persona presence because they really don't want to have to worry about the whole, what's it called? Not having foggy blades and using the invisibility to their advantage. This isn't a popular build. That's why I wanted to show it. Usually north and south. Typically is, you know, that's not even true though either, because so north and south is typical for a Ripper on a big map, and then they don't use Trump's card, and they just use teleport. That's like not atypical, but that's not the only way to build the Ripper, right? Anyways, let's get back to the discussion, because, you know, that's like a thing that I do where I just completely venture off. And also, all right, since we're already ventured off, remember, if you guys want to submit gameplay to me, check my YouTube description, and it tells you step by step exactly what you need to do. And I really appreciate non-meta hunters and non-meta survivors. Make sure the gameplay is good and action-packed so we don't get bored. And even if I don't use it right away, there's a chance that I'll use it in the future, so keep it there. Anyways, Ripper needs an adjustment. So, again, we're going to go back onto that whole building the foggy blades idea. I think that would be a good idea, of course. Because then they don't got to really tinker with it too much. Now, my problem with talking about character reworks, right, is that so many far-fetched things can come from that, right? Like you could, theoretically say, just give a whole bunch of foggy blades and only give, half damage, and you can spawn them more, kind of like a bonbon hit or a sculptor hit. And, you just have, 3 foggy blades in the beginning, but it's not going to do as much damage. And, I've seen that recommendation as well. That's a thing. But ultimately, I'd really like to see an adjustment to the Ripper. And so it's like, all right, well, we've already used the Anne as precedence, right? One of the biggest issues with Anne was that she didn't have enough cats. So it's going to come back to that Ripper, same thing, all right? There's too much stock on that first foggy blade. And he doesn't really have any crazy anti-rescue anymore. I mean, there's too many good characters who are good at rescuing now. So I don't know if you want to quantify the invisibility as having map pressure. What do you think, chat? Would you say that he has decent map pressure? Because he does have the invisibility that provides him a movement speed bonus, so he really has the ability to fly across the map a lot faster. But the reason why I asked this question is because the question is how are you going to balance him where he provides map pressure? He doesn't have the same abilities as, like, let's say what a sculptor has, the ability to look across the map and do something with it. I'd say his map pressure is arguably worse than Geisha. A really good Geisha, once she has max presence, she can throw those butterflies across the map, not literally, but like really far, and immediately dash towards the butterfly to get to another location. That's the reason why they buffed Geisha. Maybe I got to do a video on that as well, but Geisha's map pressure has significantly increased. As to how often you can use it is another discussion. So if they're going to adjust him, they really have to look at these categories. Okay, so this map pressure, it's there, but it's subpar, and it requires time to have the ability to really fly across the map, and on big maps, it doesn't work out as well, okay? Is it going to be the anti-kite, right? So there's 3 main parts to a hunter, all right? And I keep it simple. We could break that down even more, and I think that that's a good thing to do for very, very technical videos. But just from a common sense level, you have hunters who are anti-kiters, you have hunters who are anti-rescuers, and then you have hunters who are anti-map pressure or provides map pressure. All right? So, like, technically, photographer is a map pressure sort of hunter, even though he's not technically, running around the map like you would with a sculptor with the ability to see multiple angles. But the camera ability can slow down decoding and provide some sort of map pressure. All right, so those are like the big 3 categories. Now, the thing is that what really made Ripper good in the beginning of the game, or I'd say between Season 4 and 8, is the fact that he was really good at anti-kite before, a lot of the Survivor updates, before all of the Survivor buffs and new survivors that had come out. Like his bread and butter was not necessarily map pressure. His bread and butter was anti-kite and anti-rescue. His anti-kite was better than his anti-rescue for a very long time. And that was because his foggy blades were good. Peepers were better, right? Peepers got nerfed, so they're not as destructive as what they used to. And not too many people use peepers with Ripper until after Koa 2. Koa 2 really showed, like GR using Ripper with peepers, really highlighted how to use him correctly. So this has been an evolving hunter. So if they're going to adjust him, which category are they focusing on? And really where Ripper excelled was anti-kite, and then he would do okay for the anti-rescue, and that's why sometimes they would ban mercenary. Because with any other survivor other than coordinator, you really could just try to hit with a foggy blade and follow up. If you build north-south build, you have a deceleration of 30%. You can catch back up to the survivor, especially with a foggy blade and invisibility. Well, the invisibility wouldn't activate. You'd get that movement speed bonus. So that's something that I want you to consider when you're trying to hypothesize certain adjustments with this character. And that's why I think building the foggy blades and being able to use more of them, even if there's a cooldown in between using them, but having the ability to use them more quicker, just like you can with Anne, will help them with the anti-kite. And subsequently, that will also help with the anti-rescue. The map pressure will stay the same. You know, he has the ability with his invisibility to really fly around the map. And that's why primarily he should be built to be more of a medium to a medium to small map. And then if you want to use him on a big map, then really what you're building for is the chair increase. And you're hoping that you can put them in the corner of the map where you don't have to worry about map pressure. You're more focused on preventing any sort of rescue. Also, you'd be able to counter a seer if you have more foggy blades. You don't have to only worry about the seer, which is common with Bonbon. It's common with Dream Witch. Who else is it common with? It's common with Sculptor. So then it provides you more flexibility of getting rid of characters like Mercenary, which will help you with your anti-rescue. Sure, you got to worry about Gravekeeper, but not everybody uses them. I don't think this character needs like a crazy rework. I think Foggy Blades and the invisibility are pretty good tools. I think that's what needs to be adjusted. I think his map pressure will be good enough. You can't have a hunter who's too good in all three categories where there's an imbalance. That's the problem with Sculptor right now, or the perceived problem with Sculptor, and that's why Sculptor's also getting nerfed. That's why Sculptor is better than Bonbon. Bonbon is really good at anti-kite, really good at anti-rescue, doesn't have map pressure like Sculptor does when she spikes the ground and she sees across the map. So anyways, thank you for watching. I'd really appreciate your opinions on what they could do with the Ripper. And of course, I appreciate all these individuals submitting their gameplay to me. That last one I don't think was rank mode, more so match mode. I'm looking for rank mode gameplay, especially higher tiers, all sorts of hunters, especially non-meta. I can use it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I love you. Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye now.